You know what's crazy? Most boxers, whether they've been training for 3 months or 3 decades, are making fundamental mistakes they don't even realize exist. We're talking about errors so ingrained in their muscle memory that they've become invisible. You might be watching professional fighters, thinking these guys have it all figured out, and sure, they're elite athletes. However, even fighters who've won world titles have admitted to struggling with basic habits that sabotage their performance every single time they step in the ring. These aren't just minor technical hiccups. These are game-changing flaws that can mean the difference between landing that knockout punch and getting knocked out yourself. Number 9. Let's kick things off with probably the most dangerous habit in boxing, something that happens to almost everyone when they first start throwing combinations. You're so focused on delivering that perfect right cross or hook that the moment your punch leaves your face, your hand drops down to your hip. This isn't just a beginner thing either. Floyd Mayweather Sr. has talked about drilling into Floyd Jr.'s head to keep his hands up, and we're talking about arguably the greatest defensive fighter of all time. When you throw a punch, there's a natural relaxation that happens in your shoulder and arm after extension. Your brain focuses so intensely on offense that it literally forgets about defense for a split second. That split second is all a skilled opponent needs. Muhammad Ali got caught by this exact mistake against Henry Cooper in 1963. Cooper landed a left hook that dropped Ali in the 4th round, and replay showed Ali's right hand was completely down at his waist. Sure, Ali got up and won the fight, but that mistake nearly cost him his undefeated record. The fix requires conscious repetition. Every single time you throw a punch in training, you need to snap that hand back to your face like it's attached to a rubber band. But here's something that'll make the next mistake even more shocking. Number 8. This one sneaks up on boxers at every level. It's probably caused more knockouts than any other footwork error in boxing history. When you cross your feet, even for a fraction of a second, you're essentially standing on a tightrope. Your balance disappears, your power evaporates, and you become a stationary target. The crazy part is that it feels natural to cross your feet when you want to move quickly laterally. Your brain sees the shortest path from point A to B and says, just step over with that lead foot. Joe Louis, one of the hardest hitters in heavyweight history, struggled with this early in his career. His trainer Jack Blackburn spent countless hours making Louis shuffle around the ring with his feet never crossing. When your feet cross, your hips can't rotate properly, which means you can't generate power. Try throwing a hard right cross with your feet crossed, and you'll feel like you're punching underwater. Even worse, if your opponent times it right and hits you while your feet are crossed, you're going down. Canelo Alvarez got caught with his feet crossed against Dmitry Bilov in 2022, and while Canelo didn't go down, he got tagged clean when he made this error. The proper movement is a shuffle step, pushing off your back foot and sliding your lead foot first, then bringing your back foot to maintain your stance width. Wait until you hear about this next mistake that even professionals make in big fights. Number 7. This mistake is so subtle that many boxers don't realize they're doing it, yet it's one of the most common tells that experienced fighters exploit ruthlessly. Your peripheral vision is terrible at judging distance and timing. When you look down at your opponent's chest, or worse, at their feet, you're giving up precious milliseconds of reaction time. Mike Tyson was an absolute master at exploiting this. His peekaboo style wasn't just about defense, it was about forcing opponents to lose eye contact. The moment a fighter would glance down, Tyson would launch an uppercut or hook that they never saw coming. His knockout of Michael Spinks in 1988 happened in just 91 seconds, partly because Spinks kept looking at Tyson's body. The science behind this is fascinating. Your foveal vision, the center of your visual field, processes information about 200 milliseconds faster than your peripheral vision. In boxing, 200 milliseconds is the difference between slipping a punch and eating it clean. The legendary trainer Cus D'Amato used to make fighters stare into each other's eyes during drills to build a habit of maintaining visual contact. Your opponent's eyes will often betray their intentions before their body moves. The next mistake might actually surprise you because it seems completely counterintuitive. Number 6. You'd think breathing while fighting would be automatic, but boxing makes people forget how to breathe properly. Watch amateur fights and you'll see fighters turning purple in the 2nd round because they're literally holding their breath during exchanges. When you're concentrating on throwing a combination or defending, your body naturally tenses up, and that tension includes your diaphragm. Manny Pacquiao's trainer Freddie Roach has talked about working on Pacquiao's breathing in the early days. Pacquiao would throw explosive combinations and then gasp for air, which created openings for counterpunchers. The physiological impact is brutal. Your muscles need oxygen, and when you cut off that supply, you fatigue incredibly quickly. Even worse, you're not exhaling sharply when you punch, which means you're losing power. That sharp exhale you hear professional boxers make isn't for show. It's explosive breathing that stabilizes your core and adds snap to punches. Floyd Mayweather Jr. is known for incredible stamina, fighting 12 rounds at high pace well into his 40s, and one secret is breath control. The solution is to practice exhaling sharply with every punch, even in shadow boxing. Now this next one is something that even championship level fighters struggle with. Number 5. Telegraphing is when you unconsciously signal to your opponent what punch you're about to throw. It's like playing poker while showing everyone your cards. The most common telegraph is pulling your hand back before you throw it, like loading up a slingshot. You see this a lot with right crosses. Fighters will pull their right hand back an extra few inches before throwing, thinking they're adding power, but really they're just giving their opponent a heads up. Roy Jones Jr. was so good at reading telegraphs that he could literally close his eyes and still avoid punches. There are dozens of ways to telegraph without realizing it. Some fighters drop their left hand before throwing a right. Others shift their weight noticeably before throwing a hook. Some even make a facial expression right before they throw a big punch. Ricky Hatton used to telegraph his left hook to the body by dipping his left shoulder first, and Floyd Mayweather picked up on it in their 2007 fight, countering Hatton almost every time. The fix requires video analysis and honest coaching. Record yourself shadowboxing and hitting the mitts, then watch it back for preparatory movements. Your punches should come from your guard position with no extra motion. Here's where things get really interesting with this next mistake. Number 4. This is a plague among defensive-minded fighters who think staying on their back foot keeps them safe. While keeping your weight back makes you harder to hit with straight punches, it absolutely destroys your offensive capability. When your weight is on your back foot, you're essentially fighting while moving backward, even when you're standing still. This limits your punching power dramatically because you can't drive off your back leg and transfer your weight forward. Vladimir Klitschko actually mastered boxing from his back foot, but he stood 6 feet 5 inches tall with an 81-inch reach, exceptional dimensions even for heavyweight. He could afford to fight at range. For normal-sized fighters, staying on your back foot is a recipe for getting walked down and losing rounds. Even if you're landing clean counters, if you're constantly backing up, judges perceive you as losing. Lennox Lewis had this problem in his first fight against Evander Holyfield in 1999. Lewis was landing the cleaner shots, but he was doing it while moving backward, and the fight ended in a controversial draw. The solution is to keep your weight distributed evenly, maybe 55% on your front foot and 45% on your back foot. What comes next is possibly the most dangerous mistake on the entire list. Number 3. If there's one mistake that can end your career, or worse, give you serious brain trauma, it's fighting with your chin up in the air. Your chin is the sweet spot. Hit someone clean on the chin and the force transfers directly to the brainstem, which is why you get knockouts. When you keep your chin up, you're basically giving your opponent a bullseye. The proper position is chin tucked down, almost touching your chest, with your eyes looking up at your opponent. This feels uncomfortable at first because you're used to walking around with your head up, but in boxing, you need to protect that chin like it's the most valuable thing you own, because it is. Amir Khan had one of the fastest hands in boxing, lightning quick combinations and footwork, but he had a persistent problem with keeping his chin up. Over his career, Khan suffered several devastating knockouts, including losses to Danny Garcia and Canelo Alvarez, partly because his chin was exposed. The mechanics of tucking your chin work on multiple levels. First, it takes your chin out of the direct line of fire for straight punches. Second, it allows your shoulders to come up and provide additional protection. Third, it keeps your neck in a stronger position to absorb impact if you get hit. When your chin is up and you get hit, your neck is extended and weak. When your chin is tucked and you get hit, the force is distributed differently. Marvin Hagler fought with his chin practically glued to his chest, and while he took plenty of punches, he was never knocked out. The next mistake is all about power, or rather the lack of it. Number 2. This is probably the most common mistake among people who have never been properly trained, and unfortunately, it persists even in some experienced fighters who developed bad habits early on. These fighters throw punches that look like they're swatting at flies, all arm with no body rotation, no weight transfer, and no leg drive. The result is pillow-fisted punches that might score points, but will never hurt anyone. Real punching power comes from the ground up. You push off your back foot, rotate your hips, turn your shoulders, and the arm is just the delivery mechanism at the end of that kinetic chain. When you punch with just your arm, you're using maybe 20% of your potential power. George Foreman was a devastating puncher, and a huge part of his power came from perfect weight transfer and body rotation. Watch his knockout of Joe Frazier in 1973. Every punch Foreman threw had his entire body behind it. Compare that to someone like Chris Aguilera, who was talented but his punches lacked serious power because he was too upright and didn't rotate his body enough. Researchers have found that hip rotation can contribute up to 40% of total punch power, while leg drive contributes another 20%. The arm and shoulder only contribute about 30%. When you punch with just your arm, you're literally leaving 70% of your power on the table. And now, the number 1 mistake that almost every boxer makes at some point. Number 1. Here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. You can have the fastest hands in the world, the hardest punch in your gym, and the best defensive instincts, but if your footwork is garbage, you're never going to reach your potential. Footwork is the foundation that everything else is built on, yet it's the thing that most boxers neglect because it's boring and it's hard and it doesn't feel as cool as throwing bombs on a heavy bag. Bad footwork shows up in multiple ways. Standing too square instead of at an angle, taking steps that are too big or too small, not maintaining proper stance width, failing to move on the balls of your feet, and crossing your feet, which we already covered. All of these issues stem from the same problem, not drilling footwork fundamentals until they become second nature. Muhammad Ali had arguably the greatest footwork in heavyweight history. He could float around the ring for 15 seconds and never be where his opponent expected him to be, but Ali didn't develop that footwork by accident. He spent countless hours doing footwork drills, ladder work, and movement exercises that most fighters considered beneath them. Vasyl Lomachenko took this even further. Before he ever put on boxing gloves, Lomachenko spent years doing Ukrainian folk dancing, which requires incredible footwork, balance, and spatial awareness. When he transitioned to boxing, his footwork was so advanced that he could create angles that seemed impossible. Good footwork makes everything else easier. It puts you in position to land clean punches, it gets you out of range of incoming shots, and it allows you to control the ring and dictate the pace of the fight. Look, boxing is a beautiful sport, but it's also brutally honest. These 9 mistakes we've covered aren't just minor technical issues, they're fundamental flaws that can hold you back, no matter how talented you are or how hard you train. The good news is that now you know what to look for. Whether you're training yourself or watching fights, you can spot these mistakes and understand why they matter. And if you found this breakdown helpful, I've got another video that dives deep into boxing fundamentals that you absolutely need to check out. The link is in the description below. Before you head over there though, do me a solid and smash that subscribe button. We're building a community of real boxing fans who appreciate the technical side of the sport, and I'd love to have you as a part of it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep your hands up and your chin down.